Yo, what's good everyone? Today I'm going to be taking a first look here at this Week 6 NFL DraftKings main slate. Let's dive right into it. And like we always do here in these videos, I'm going to go position by position, highlighting the plays that are sticking out to me here early in the week, and then we'll wrap up this video by putting together a first look cash lineup and a first look tournament lineup. But before we dive into the quarterbacks, everyone, if you could like this video and subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate that. It's completely free to do, and every like, comment, and sub that you guys leave truly does help me out. I also want to mention I do run a free Discord channel as well. We have over 860 people in there today talking multiple different sports for DFS and sports betting. If you want to join that, there's a link to do so in the description below, as well as in the pinned comment below. With that being said, let's dive into the quarterbacks here. We got 10 games on the main slate here for week 6, and quite a few quarterbacks that are sticking out to me here initially as I record this on Monday. For starters, I think we're going to like this game between the 49ers and Buccaneers. We're going to have to wait and see if Brock Purdy is going to play. If I had to guess here on Monday, I suspect that he will. They played on that Thursday night game last week, so got a little extra time to heal up here before week 6. But with that being said, I want to talk about the Buccaneers here to start. Baker has truly been great, putting himself right in the MVP conversation once again this year. 10 touchdowns, 1 interception, balled out in that Sunday game against Seattle, 29.7 DraftKings points. And we saw that Matthew Stafford kind of tore up that 49ers defense just last Thursday, so I think there's some shootout potential there. Now, I want to see what happens with the Baltimore Ravens this week. They were obviously just decimated in week 5 playing the Houston Texans. Assuming that they're going to be beat up again, I think we'll be able to play Matthew Stafford. He's been really good, especially in his last 2 games, basically putting up 30 DraftKings points there. Easy stacking pieces with him as well, with Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams. I'm not going to get into Justin Herbert right now, but it is intriguing here against Miami. My only concern there is going on the East Coast, playing at 11 a.m., that is Mountain Time, but 1 p.m. Eastern Time. That's never ideal for the West Coast teams, but I think I might have a little interest in that. Jordan Love for sure going to have interest in this here at home against Cincinnati. That's one of the worst defenses in the NFL, and Love coming off of his best game of the season, albeit that was in week 4, threw for 3 touchdowns, over 300 yards, hitting 30 DraftKings points. Now on the other side of this game between the 49ers and Buccaneers, we're obviously not 100% sure if Purdy is going to play this week, but with that being said, I would not be opposed to be playing Mac Jones here as well. He looked really good in that week 5 game on Thursday night against the Rams, threw the ball 49 times. I don't know if we're going to get that week in and week out, but again, another guy who went over 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, 25 DraftKings points. We'll take that every day of the week for a guy priced at $5,600. So that's a situation we will need to monitor, but needless to say, it looks like I'm going to have some interest here in the 49ers. And then the last quarterback that I wanted to highlight here was Drake May. This is for sure going to be a cash game play for me, and probably a tournament play as well. He is coming off of his worst fantasy point production so far this season, maybe his worst game. I don't know. They got the win last night against the Buffalo Bills. That's a huge win for the Patriots in general, so I'm going to overlook the 12 DraftKings points there because prior to that, 20 plus in 3 straight games, 17 back in week 1. If I shoot for 3x value in my cash lineup, that's 18 DraftKings points, and he's averaging 2 points over that to start the season. Now, moving on to the running backs here, we got Christian McCaffrey and Jonathan Taylor at the top in the mid 8K range, kind of in a category of their own at this position, and I really don't need to convince anybody to play these guys. You can see they're both averaging 25 DraftKings points per game, both sitting in good matchups here coming into week 6. If I can play both of them in my cash lineup here heading into this week, I think that would be an ideal scenario, and both tournament viable as well. But let's get into these kind of tier 2 plays, if you will. I'm kind of really looking from Kyren Williams and up, and that's kind of my tier 2 plays, I suppose. I do like Kyren here in this situation against Baltimore. Again, we need to keep an eye on the Baltimore team. Really banged up in that week 5 matchup against Houston, but if we get that here, just hypothetically speaking, in week 6 for the Rams, they're going to be in a smash spot themselves. I also like Javonte Williams in this spot here against Carolina. He's been fantastic through 5 weeks, averaging 21.5 DraftKings points per game with a floor there of 13 7.2 DraftKings points. I'll take that for 6.4K. And then I want to talk about Genty here as well at 6.9K. Now, I know the Raiders have been really disappointing here. Geno Smith has looked horrible through 5 weeks, but Genty's starting to get more involved in this offense. We've seen it back in week 4, touched the ball, 23 times in that game. Last week, he had 21 opportunities. So I'm going to be looking at him. The price tag is going up, so I don't love that, but looks like a decent spot there against the Tennessee Titans. But let's get into some of the cheaper plays that I like here. Scrolling down into the 5K range. First, we're going to talk about Judkins of the Cleveland Browns. Unique situation for this guy with training camp. Really didn't even get much training camp or practice this offseason. Comes in fresh as a rookie, starts in week 2, and he's just been getting progressively better week in and week out. Had a long touchdown called back actually in week 5 against Minnesota, so 17 DraftKings points. It could have been a lot better than that. I know we look at this Pittsburgh Steelers defense notoriously and say, we kind of want to avoid that matchup, but honestly, considering the volume he's been getting and how good he's looked, I'll be considering him at that price tag there of $5,900. Now, if Chuba Hubbard's going to be out, Rico Dowdle, I mean, honestly, if Hubbard is back, how do you not give this guy the ball in week 6? 23 rushing attempts for 206 rushing yards in week 5 against Miami. He had 4 targets as well. I'm kind of hoping that Chuba doesn't play. I never root for injuries, but Chuba, go heal up. We'll take Rico for another week here at $5,800 in a good matchup there against Dallas. Now, if we don't happen to get Jaylen Warren here, he's listed as questionable as I record this on Monday. I think Kenneth Gainwell's going to be in play. And then Michael Carter ended up kind of being the lead back here with no Trey Benson in week 5, 18 rushing attempts, 5 targets. Again, if we're just talking about pure opportunity and volume, it's hard to ignore it at that price of $5,300. We then got the wide receivers here, and my tier 1 wide receivers heading into this week look to be from Igbuka all the way up to Nacua. And there's probably a case to be made to roster any one of these guys, but I'm kind of looking at Puka Nacua here and Igbuka in their matchups. For starters, again, don't want to sound like a broken record, but Baltimore super beat up right now. And even if they do get some of their starters back this week, I mean, just look at the pure numbers here for Nacua. His lowest target share so far was back in week 2 with 9, with a ceiling of 15. His lowest fantasy score was actually last week at 24.5. This guy's probably just stapled into my cash lineup. I know it's Monday, but it's so hard to ignore those numbers. Again, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Jamar Chase, we know the upside that they offer, but my second favorite wide receiver here in the upper price range is going to be Igbuka. With no Mike Evans, this guy is truly a number 1 wide receiver in this offense, coming off his best performance of the season against Seattle at 34.3 DraftKings points. Look at that. I mean, just back-to-back games with 100 receiving yards as well. This guy is truly a stud as a rookie. My tier 2 wide receiver plays are going to be from Steph Diggs all the way up to Pickens here. And I'm kind of looking more so in this 6K range with Jalen Waddle here. With no Tyreek Hill, he kind of took his game to the next level last week. 9 targets, I'd like to see him stay in this range, even get into the double digits, but performed well, 110 receiving yards, scored a touchdown, 26 DraftKings points. I like that considering the price. I like Quentin Johnston here once again. I know he had his worst game of the season back in week 5. Back in week 5, like that just wasn't yesterday. 4 targets, though. Lowest of the season. I think he'll float around that 7 target mark for most of the season, so at $5,900, I'll be considering him once again. And then Steph Diggs coming off his best game of the season, looking to really build some chemistry here with Drake May over the last 2 weeks. 7 targets, 12 targets last night against the Buffalo Bills. A little bit of a revenge game narrative there for him, but he played really well, 27.6 DraftKings points. Again, if we're getting a guy here in the mid-5K range getting double-digit targets, we want to put those guys in our cash lineup. Keenan Allen, I think he's going to be okay, just like McConkey, but let's scroll down here into the lower 5K range, kind of my tier 3 plays, if you will. Now, if Ricky Pearsall is back this week, which I'm really hoping that he is, he's a great cash game play, great tournament play, especially considering the shootout potential in that matchup against the Buccaneers, but he's looked good here in his sophomore season. And then we got Michael Pittman Jr. here and Marvin Harrison Jr. Both these guys guys are in similar situations to where I don't know if we can go there and cash. Double-digit targets in week 4, we like that, but outside of that, kind of floating around this 5 or 6 range when it comes to targets. He has been great in the red zone so far this year, but that's really kind of what you're banking on. So, like I said, more of a tournament play there for me, and same thing here with Marvin Harrison Jr. I believe that he got 10 targets in week 4 too, just like Michael Pittman Jr., but outside of that, really kind of floating around 5 or 6 per game. So those are on my radar, but like I said, more tournament plays for me. And then Chris Olave would be a cash game consideration because this is a guy, while they're shorter A-dot targets, he is a safety valve wide receiver for Spencer Rattler, and he's now got double-digit targets there in 4 of 5 games. So he's more of a cash game play than a tournament, but someone who caught my attention. We then got the tight ends here, and honestly, I'm looking at the top price guys here, and they're still not super expensive. DraftKings is kind of refusing to price these guys up when a lot of them are acting as number 1 or number 2 pass catchers in their offense right now. So from Kraft to McBride, I really don't need to say too much outside of the fact that they're kind of balling out right now and offer some really nice floor scores and ceiling scores. But if we're looking to save a little money here, I think Hunter Henry's going to be fine, but Darren Waller in his first 2 games as a Miami Dolphin has looked really good. He was kind of limited in his first game, but still had 4 targets, scored 2 touchdowns, kind of ramped it up a little bit last week, 5 targets, 5 receptions, scored again, 17 and 18 DraftKings points here in his first 2 games. And $4,000, we need, 12 DraftKings points for him to hit 3x? I think he's going to be in play. No George Kittle, so we can go with the backup tight end right now for the 49ers. Like I said, I just like this game environment in general, and if those wide receivers are still going to miss here in week 6 for the 49ers, this play is going to be even better. And then I think that we can go to David Njoku here. He looked like he was kind of the safety valve for Dylan Gabriel in his first start. 9 targets, 6 receptions, scored a touchdown. Maybe he gets a little more involved here in this offense like we're used to seeing from previous years. Outside of that, I think Juwan Johnson's going to be fine there at $3,300. His price is decreasing. But if we get no Brock Bowers or Michael Mayer this week, we're going with our boy Albert here. I cannot pronounce that last name, so forgive me, but we're basically punting at this price of $2,600. He saw 6 targets last week with both of those guys out. You can't bank on that every single week. That's why he's priced here so cheap, but if you give me 4 to 6 targets at $2,600, I'll punt that play. And then we got the defenses here, and this could be a spend-up week for the likes of the Packers going up against a backup quarterback in Jake Browning. Cincinnati's just not been good since Joe Burrow went out. You have Pittsburgh taking a rookie quarterback in Dylan Gabriel. I think that's fine. Arizona has not been great offensively, so I don't mind Indy there at home. Really curious to see how the Jaguars perform tonight against the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, but prior to this game here on Monday night, this defense has been balled out against San Francisco, Houston, Cincinnati, and Carolina. So they're intriguing at $2,800. I can't say I love the matchup against Seattle here, but again, if they go out tonight and just beat up on this Chiefs offense, I do like that price tag at $2,800. Even if they're just viable tonight against the Chiefs, I think we'll be talking about the Jags. Scrolling down here a little bit if we want to save even more money. Like I said, Geno Smith has been truly terrible through 5 games so far this year. I think Tennessee could be a decent punt play there. And then maybe even the Saints. I know I've talked about New England a little bit here in this video, but the Saints have been perfectly fine considering their price. So if we're looking to basically punt at the defensive position, I think the Saints and Titans are going to be in play. All right, everyone. Now, before we put together this first look cash lineup here, if you could like this video and subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate that. Again, it's completely free to do, and every interaction you guys have here on this video, whether it be a like, comment, or subscribing to the channel, truly does help me out. With that being said, let's kick it off here at the quarterback position. I'm going to save a little money here with my cash lineup. Let's go with Drake May to kick it off. And I do want to spend up here for at least one of Christian McCaffrey or Jonathan Taylor. Let's go with CMC here to begin with. And then I kind of like saving a little bit of money here with the last 2 running backs. So let's go with Rico Dowdle, just hoping that Hubbard doesn't play here this week. And then we'll put in Carter as well as another cheap piece. I believe he was, $5,300? allow us to spend up a little bit for at least Puka Nacua here. So I want to put him in at $8,700. Let's get a little stack going there with Diggs and May. And let's run it back on the other side, actually, with Chris Olave. That means we're going to have to save some money here. Let's go to the defense. Let's put in the Titans. I don't want to put in the Saints, being that I have May and Diggs. And that means I need to go with our boy Albert here at $2,600. So for a first look cash lineup, I don't mind that. And then my favorite part of this video, putting together a first look tournament lineup here. Let's build around this game stack between the 49ers and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I've talked about that quite a bit. Let's go with Baker Mayfield here. We'll just do a single stack, actually, with this one. We'll go with Igbuka here. He is $7,200, and then run it back. Let's actually, instead of Christian McCaffrey, and we could go that route, let's just hypothetically assume that Ricky Parcell is going to play here. Again, turn into a bit of a shootout. He could see double-digit targets, and I do like that price tag there. So let's go back to the running backs. Let's get a little unique here. I guess I don't know what the projected ownership are going to look like for these guys here. It is Monday, but let's go with Judkins. And let's go with Javonte as well. I really like what I've seen from him so far this year. 46.25 left over per player. I want to do a little mini game stack here between Marvin Harrison for the Cardinals, and then let's go with Tyler Warren here on the Colts side of things. So a little mini game stack there, hoping that turns into a bit of a shootout. Playing indoors, there's always potential for that. Let's go with the defense. Let's put in the Saints, save a little bit of money here. And what does that give us left over? $5,900 for a flex. You could go Rico Dowdle again, Quentin Johnston. I actually kind of like... I went with Javonte already, so let's go with Quentin Johnston here in the flex. First look tournament lineup, I don't mind that either. Alright everyone, that is going to wrap up this video here for today. As always, thank y'all for taking the time out of your day to watch the content here on this channel. If you could like this video and subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate that.